A pleasant afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Roch J. Sarate, a second-year criminology student at Hingoog City Colleges. Today, I am going to discuss and explain the theories of crime causation. At today's discussion, we have learning outcomes. At the end of this activity, we should be able to define classical, psychological, sociological, economic, biopsychosocial, political, or social conflict theories of crime causation, analyze the difference of the theories of crime causation, and identify the following person who coined the theories. So, the first theory is about classical theories of crime causation. So, classical theories, it is based on the assumption that people are free of will and thus completely responsible for their own action. So this theory means it is based on someone's personal decision to commit a crime or decision. No one pushed him to do it, but it is personal needs that motivate him to do a crime. For example, may isang taong may isang taong nakapatay ng kasamahan sa trabaho dahil he seeks for revenge. So this situation shows that it is it is his own decision to kill because of his needs, and he is the only person who is responsible of the consequence. So, mao na siya ang classical theory. So, under the classical theory, we have rational choice theory. Rational choice theory is based on the fundamental tenets of classical criminology, which hold that people freely choose their behavior and are motivated by the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of pleasure. So, this theory is the same with classical theory, that is based on personal choice or decision. But this theory is tinitimbang muna ng isang tao ang kinalalabasan ng kanyang gagawin. So, it also assumes that crime is a personal choice, the result of individual decision-making processes. So, for example, ikaw ay nag-iisip or ikaw ay nag-iisip or nagpaplanong magnakaw bago mo ito gagawin. Iniisip mo muna ang mga consequence, kung ano ang posibleng kahahantungan. Iniisip mo muna ang mga consequence kung ito ba ay makakatulong or makakasama sa iyo. So, because as a rational being, we have the ability to think and know that this is a right and wrong. This is theory and this theory was coined by David Matcha and Edwin Sutherland. And also we have routine activity theory. It is based on the assumption that crime can be committed by anyone who has the opportunity. It also states that victims are given choices on whether to be victim mainly by not placing themselves in the situation where a crime can be committed against them. So this theory is a result of people everyday behavior. This theory says that in order to crime to occur, there are three elements must be present. The first is motivated. The second is motivated offender, and the second is a suitable target, and the last one is the absence of capable guardian. If these three elements come together, the crime will occur. Ang example is kanang naisa ka bata nga gigutom. Then nakakita siya tindahan nga open nga pwede niya makawatan. Ang bata dani is ang offender. So open man siya, then walay tao nga makakita. So if so if he do the crime, walay makakita na tao. That is why there's opportunity to do the crime, and that is the Rothrin theory. And this theory was created by Lawrence E. Cohen and Marcus K. Felson. So the next theory, we have lifestyle theory. It is the idea that individuals have a high risk of becoming crime victims if their patterns of behavior expose themselves to victimization. Certain people may become the victim of crimes because of their lifestyle and choices. So, this theory tells us that people become a victim of a crime because their lifestyle and choices had exposure to offender. For example of this theory is, a person can become potential suspect because of the potential target. Like, uh, uh, ikaw ay ikaw ay isang nurse, tapos ang imong uh, tinguli kay gabi, and so that is your lifestyle, and this can lead you to a victim of a crime such as robbery, rape, or murder, because the offender was already familiarized or natiman-anan niya ang imong lifestyle nga inana ka nga oras maguli, so you become a potential target. And the person so and the person who coined this theory, theory was coined by Michael Hindelang and Michael R. Uh, Gottfredson and James Garofalo. So, mao na siya ang lifestyle theory. And also, we have under the classical theory, we have also general deterrence and specific deterrence. So, general deterrence, which seeks to curb illegal conduct, the public will avoid committing crimes from fear of the strict consequences. To discourage people from committing crime by setting an example of what the consequences of a crime can be. So, general deterrence is it is mag-impose og punishment to the public in order for them to discourage doing the crime because of the consequences na gihatag. Example, uh, kanang mga driver, they need to have a license since this law was imposed for the public, and gihatag pud ni nga consequences para ma-avoid ang mga crime. So, on the other hand, specific deterrence, the use it is the use of punishment for criminal activity intended to discourage specific individual from committing the crime again. So, uh, uh, specific de- uh, specific deterrence, it is only for one person or in specific individual. For example, ikaw nakapatay, you are sentenced for pila ka years, or whether 5 or for example 5 to 6 years, it is imposed to that person or individual in order for him to not repeat the crime that he made. And also, this theory was created by Cesar Beccaria and Jeremy Bentham. That's the difference between general deterrence and specific deterrence. So, mao na siya ang pasabot sa general deterrence and specific deterrence. So, we and we have also victim precipitation. So, victim precipitation, the characteristics of the victim precipitate the crime. A criminology theory that analyzes how victims' interaction with an offender may contribute to the crime being committed. Common crimes: homicide, rape, assault, and robbery. It was created. This theory was created by Han von Hentig. So, so von Han von Hintig states that victim precipitation focus the interaction between the offender and the victim. The victim had a responsibility or meron siyang kasalanan sa kanyang pagiging biktima dahil sa naging interaction niya sa isang offender. So for example of this theory was like bago napatay ang biktima, nakapagsalita siya ng hindi maganda sa offender na naging rason na magalit ang offender kaya siya ay nabaril. So mo na siya ang pasabot sa mo na ang pasabot sa victim precipitory bago ang katong victim is murag na siya'y na istorya nga dili mao, then ang katong ang offender so murag nalain siguro siya, then na siya'y murag kasuko or kadumot, that's why nga napusilto niya ang victim. So murag naglagot na siguro siya, then murag di na niya mapugnan, so iyatong na pusil ang iyang kauban. So that's the victim precipitation means. So and under the classical theory, we have the last topic that is incapacitation theory. The state has a duty to protect the public from future wrongs or harms, to prevent the most dangerous or prolific offenders from reoffending in the community. So it was created. This theory was created by Zimring and Hawkins. So this theory, it stated that this theory has a responsibility to protect the people from the wrongdoings or harms that can affect people, that can affect kanang makaapekto sa mga tao. Gina-prevent nila ang mga future na crime para maprotektahan ang atong society or community, labi na sa mga tao. Then it also aims to prevent future crimes. Yes, mo na prevent future crimes by removing the offenders from the society. Ang example dani, the best example is the curfew. 'Di ba ang like for curfew, every 10 p.m. ang mga pulis, ang mga otoridad is naglibot-libot sila sa lugar para ma-avoid or maagapan ang mga future na gawain na masama, at hindi para dili makaarte ang mga offenders, hindi sila makaplano dahil merong mga otoridad na nagbabantay para maiwasan ang mga future na mga sakuna. That's why this theory was created para mapasabot sa mga tao nga kaning incapacitation theory is to prevent the most dangerous nga mga panghitabo, and that's the incapacitation theory. So let's proceed to the psychological theories of crime causation. So according to psychological theories, criminal behavior is the result of unconscious factor acting on a personal psyche. Some aggression can leak out of the unconscious, leading to random acts of violence. So when we say unconscious, it is something that or inside to our mind or thought that we cannot control. According to this group of theories, may have an impact of individual ability to function normally as an adult. So under the psychological theory, we have psychodynamic theory and psychosexual stages of human development. According to psychodynamic theory was developed by Sigmund Freud, and it is stated that unconscious mental processes acquired in early childhood control human personality. The psychological drives and forces within the individual that explain human behavior and personality. So, and psychodynamic theory explained that human behavior had three components, namely the id, ego, and superego. Id is your pleasure principle, and ego is your reality principle, while the superego is your morality principle. This works in your mind unconsciously. So while the uh, while the psychological stages of human development, it is the most basic human motivation is the eros, which is present at birth. At very stage of life, human experience sexuality. Desire to protect, create life eros is a sexually expressed emotion. So, while the psychosexual theory explains that human personality development takes place with five stages, with oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. It tells us that human personality is shaped through these stages. So, we have also behavioral theory. So, according to John Watson, developed by behavioral theory, which was popularized by Burrhus Frederick Skinner, it concentrates on certain stimuli and how people react to them. It also contains that human activities are shaped by learning experiences. So, ang behavioral theory ay base sa tao ay pwede mong i-condition ang kanyang behavior depende sa rewards at sa punishment. For example, merong ali na nagbebenta ng suman, lagi siyang pabalik-balik magbenta sa kanyang kapitbahay dahil na-condition siya dahil sa tuwing magbebenta siya sa kanyang kapitbahay, lagi itong bumibili. So, in terms of behavioral theory, Sigmund Freud believed that behavioral controlled by unconscious mental processes, but John Watson and Burrhus Frederick Skinner ay hindi sila naniniwala kay Freud dahil they believe that behavior is not unconscious, it is conscious. So that's the behavioral theory. So we proceed to the and also we have social learning theory. According to social learning theory, it is the branch of behavioral theory most relevant to criminology, and Albert Bandura's social learning theory emphasizes the necessity of observing, modeling, and mimicking others' behaviors, attitude, and emotion reaction. So, the Canadian psychologists who argued that people are not actually born with the ability to act violently, but they learn to be aggressive through their life experiences. And stated that lahat ng experiences, whether it's good or bad, pwede rin itong dahilan sa pagiging bad behavior. Bandura claimed that when people learn to act aggressively, when as children they model their behavior after the violent act of an adult. For example, ang bata ay palagi niyang nakikita ang kanyang ama na sinasaktan ang kanyang ina. So merong tendency na ang bata ay pwedeng magaya sa kanyang ama. Sa paglaki niya, pwede rin niyang saktan ang kanyang asawa o kanyang pamilya. So under the psychological theory, we have also the cognitive theory. So according to Jean William Fritz, Piaget studies the perception of reality and mental processes required to understand the world we live. It focuses on the way people perceive and mentally represent the world around them. Contains several subgroups such as the moral and intellectual development branch, which is concerned on how people morally represent and reason about the world. So, when we say cognitive, ito yung ability natin na maintindihan natin ang nangyayari sa kapaligiran. When a person knows how to perceive and understand, a person can know to reason out and make judgment. The cognitive development starts with your childhood and how you were able to understand the world. So let's proceed to the moral development theory. Uh, moral development theory focuses on how children develop morality and moral reasoning. Occurs in series of 6 stages. Suggests that logic is primarily focused on seeking, maintaining justice. Kohlberg suggested that people travel through stages moral development that is possible that serious have moral orientation that differs those law-abiding citizen. So, ang moral development theory explains that our development of moral reasoning happens in 6 stages. It focuses more on how children develop his morality and moral reasoning. It is also state that person who commits a crime had a lower moral development rather than non-criminals. So that's the moral development theory. So let's proceed to the intergenerational transmission theory. According to Anne Daffey, transmission refers to the transfer of individual abilities, threats, behavior, and outcomes from parents to their children. Transmission refers to the socialization and social learning that helps to explain the way in which children growing up in a violent family learn violent rules. States that criminal and antisocial parents tend to have delinquent and antisocial children. So, this theory explains that when a person committed a crime and become delinquent and antisocial children, it's because of a parent's behavior. There's transmission happens. There's a bigger possibility that a child will commit a crime when he is exposed with the violence. So that's the meaning of intergenerational transmission theory. So we have also alternative theory. So alternative theory, uh, well known well known that opposite charges attract. Female criminals are more likely to marry male offenders. First process, homogamy, where convicted people tend to choose each other as mates because of physical and social proximity. Second process, called phenotypic assortment, where people examine each other's personality and behavior and choose partner who similar to themselves. So, it is a theory where similar people cohabit, married or become sexual partner. They choose to become mates for they mate at the same place and right time. Other become cohabit because people examine each other's personality, and kung nalaman nila na may pareho silang personalidad, then there's a big chance that they will cohabit. It is developed by Robert Kruger. Robert Kruger was developed this theory. So that's alternative theory. So next we have also differential association reinforcement theory. So according to Ernest Borges and Ronald Akers, proposes that the occurrence of criminal activity is determined by whether it is rewarded or penalized. People are more likely to respond positively to the reaction of the most important people in their lives. If a criminal behavior elicits more positive reinforcement or reward than punishment, the behavior will persist. The role of a parent as primary educators is critical. So, in this theory, parents' role is very important, for they are one who will reinforce the behavior of their children. If a person will reward the negative behavior of his child, then the behavior will persist until he become an adult. This is why parents must know how to reinforce their child's behavior. So, mo na naka-importante sa differential association reinforcement. That's why develop ni Ernest Borges and Ronald A. Akers. So that's the differential association reinforcement theory. So next we have Ising conditioning theory. claims that all human personalities can be seen in three dimensions: psychotic, extroversion, and neuroticism. Score high and psychotic, aggressive, egocentric, and impulsive. Score high and extroversion skills, sensation seeking, dominant, and assertive. High levels of neuroticism, low self-esteem, excessive anxiety, and erratic mood swings. Human develop conscience through conditioning, and the criminal gradually become conditioned and appear to care little if their association actions are condemned. So I think conditioning theory believes that human develops conscience through conditioning. So criminal will be conditioned if their action brings disapproval to the society. It is also shown that extroverts are much more difficult to condition than introverts. So that's I think conditioning theory. So next we have integrated theory. James Q. Wilson and Richard Julius Bernstein proposed this theory, predatory street crime, by demonstrating how human nature developed as a result of interaction of psychological, biological, and social factors. That genes and environment influence some people to develop the type of a personality that leads to criminal behavior. Genes and environment are some factors that are shape the person to become a criminal. If a person was exposed to criminals and committing crime, then it will be a factor that push him into commit a crime. So that's an integrated theory. So next we have maternal deprivation and attachment theory. According to Edward John M. Bowley, which stated that kid requires warmth and affection from his or her mother or mother replacement. The most important phenomenon to social development takes place after the birth of any mammal, and that is construction of any emotional bond between the infant and his mother. The most important phenomenon to social development takes place after the birth of any mammal, and that is construction of emotional bond between the infant and his mother. So, a child should not be deprived with the love and care of their mother, and there should be a great attachment towards the child and his mother. If a child's being deprived with this, there's a possibility that the child we have anxious attachment result that affects the capacity to be affectionate. And that's the end of this second topic, which is the psychological theory. And so the next topic is about sociological theories of crime causation. So, it explains how a certain individual acquires criminal or undesirable behavior, describes how the agents of socialization such as family, environment, school, mass media, and peer groups contribute to or affect the behavior of a specific individual, and it would also somehow manifest as to how a person responds or reacts with regard to the conduct displayed by other persons whom he or she or socialize with. So, this theory describes that a person can learn how to respond or react depending on whom he is with, like his family, environment. He will be influenced by the behavior of who is socializing with. So, under the sociological theory, we have social disorganization theory. Social disorganization theory was developed by Clifford Shaw and Henry Mackay. Crime rates are higher in areas where the fabric of social life has become frayed. Crime-ridden neighborhoods are seen as places that citizens are attempting to flee as soon as possible according to social disorder. Neighborhood disintegration and slum condition were the fundamental causes of criminal activity. So this theory related crimes rates to local ecological factors. If the social had disorganized system, there is a higher crime rates, more prone to crime activity. So let's proceed to the next concentric zone theory. It consisting of series of 5 concentric circles or zones and that there are stable and significant differences in interzones crime rates noticed by Borges and Park. It consists of series of transitional inner city zones where huge numbers of foreign-born people have lived look to have the highest concentration of crime. Notice Bishow and Henry. Even though crime rates change, they found out that the highest rates were always in the central city and transitional areas, and that's the concentric zone meaning. So let's proceed to the anomy theory. Anomy theory, coined by French sociologist David Emile Durkheim, 1858 to 1917, and is derived from the Greek nomos, which meaning without rules. One is in which social standards have broken down or become ineffective during period of fast social change or crisis such as war and famine. Most prone to arise in culture transitioning from mechanical to organic solidarity. So, anomy theory is a theory states that a person had a freedom to choose to do such criminal activity because there are no rules at all to be followed that leads people to commit a crime. So that's a anomy theory. Next, we have strain theory. Robert Kim Merton, an American sociologist, adapted Durkheim's notion of anomy to criminology, believes that crime is a result of conflict between people's ambition and legal tools to achieve those aims. Those who were unable to achieve their objectives due to a lack of resource would experience anger, frustration, and resentment, which is referred to as strain. So, a crime happened because of the conflict between two people and has misunderstanding that will lead to anger and frustration, and those who strain will have the chance to do the criminal activity. So next we have relative deprivation theory. Judith R. Blow and Peter M. Blow created this theory. Highlights that a sharp divide between rich and poor fosters an atmosphere of jealousy and mistrust. Criminal motivation is motivated by a sense of humiliation as well as a sense of having the right to humiliate a victim in return. When comparing their lives to those of the more affluent lower class, individual may feel both impoverished and enlarged. So, our world is divided with a rich and poor society. It leads to division that brings jealousy and anger, especially when someone is being deprived and maltreated, that will lead to do a crime. So that's our meaning of relative deprivation theory. So next we have general strain theory. So Robert Agnew revised Robert Merton's strain theory, claiming that criminality is a direct result of negative emotional states such as wrath, frustration, despair, disappointment, and other negative emotions associated with stress are all common. Seeks to explain why people who are stressed and stressed out are more inclined to commit crimes. And he offers broader explanation for criminality activity in all aspects of society. He discovers that number of strains can cause negative emotion experiences. So, a person can commit a crime or think to do unnecessary things are because of his emotional state, particularly negative thoughts. They are prone to do a crime. So that's the meaning of general strain theory proposed by Robert A. Agnew. And the next is cultural deviance theory. Okay. So according to Clifford Shaw and Henry Mackay, combines the impact of social disorganization and strain to explain how residents of falling communities respond to social isolation and economic deprivation. Member of the lower class form a distinct subculture with its own set of laws and values as a result of their tiring, frustrating, and demoralizing experiences. Those who are economically deprived and living in disorganizing areas, in order to gain success, may resort to a crime and delinquency. So it explains, this theory explains that those people are deprived economically have a chance to do a crime. So since they can feel unequal with the other group of people. And that's the cultural deviance theory. So the next is the delinquent subculture theory. Albert K. Cohen first articulated the theory in his classic book, Delinquent Boys. The delinquent behavior of lower class youth is actually a protest against the norms and values of the middle class. Believe that because of the status frustration, lower class boys who suffer rejection by middle class or rich people may form deviant subculture. So, in this theory, a delinquent youth had a chance to be a criminal, to be in the criminal activity because they are rejected by the society and poor discipline with their parents. Uh, so, mao na siya ang meaning sa delinquent subculture theory na gusto nga ipahiwatig ni Albert Cohen. So, we have also the differential opportunity theory. So, incorporates strain and disorganization ideas into a depiction of a gang-based criminal subculture is that people from all walks of life have the same aspiration for achievement, but those in the lower classes have fewer resources to achieve them. Olin believed that not all the illegal acts are committed by the gang youth. They are the source of the most serious, sustained, and costly criminal behaviors. So, having different opportunity, youth who have low opportunity to do things legally will tend to do things illegally, like they join gangs in order to survive and able to eat. They can commit crime due to the differential opportunity. This theory is the output of the classical work of Richard A. Cloward and Lloyd E. Hollins. So that's a differential opportunity theory. So let's proceed to drift theory. So according to David Matza and Gresham Syke, even the most devoted criminals and delinquents do not engage in criminal activity all of the time. They also attend schools, family activities, and religious services. Their action can be thought of as falling somewhere between total freedom and utter restriction. Refers to a shift in conduct from the extreme to the other, resulting in behavior that is at time unusual, free, deviant, and at the other time restrained and sober. So, not all the times that criminals wanted to be to do bad things. Sometimes they shift their behavior into good things. They can also think on how they live normally. So, mo nang pasabot sa drift theory. So, we have also differential association theory. According to Edwin Sutherland, tell me who your friends are and I will tell you who you are. And birds of the same feathers flock together, and when they flock together, they fly so high. People commit crimes, he claims, through learning in a social context through their interaction and dialogue with others. Criminal behavior is taught through interaction with others, including the tactics of committing the crime, as well as the motives, urges, rationalization, and attitude that leads to yes. So the meaning of this theory shows that criminal can learn the values and attitude and techniques through the interaction of others. So let's proceed to the containment theory. So, containment theory, presented by Walter C. Reckless, 1899 and 1988, assumes that for every individual, there exists a containing external structure and protective internal structure, both of which provide defense, protection, or insulation against delinquency. If an individual containing external and protective external or inner containment are weak, then there's a great possibility that the will commit a crime or may resort delinquency. So for example, when his inner and external containment is weak, then there is a possibility to commit a crime. When you are invited by a friend to use a drug plus you are an orphan, then the possibility of it is that you can able to use and to do it, that nagawa mo na ang mga bagay na dapat hindi mo gawin. So that's the meaning of containment theory. And under the then we proceed to the social bond theory. So connects the emergence of criminality to the deterioration of social bonds. Assumes that everyone is potential lawbreaker, but they are kept in check because they are afraid of hurting their connection with friends, parents, neighbors, teachers, and jobs if they break the law. So it is better to have social interaction and bond towards other people, for it will help you to avoid to do the crimes since you are afraid that someone may hurt. This theory was articulated by Travis W. Hershey. So that's the yan ang ang meaning na dapat ipahiwating ni Travis W. Hershey about sa social bond theory. So we have social reaction or labeling theory. So social reaction labeling theory, Howard S. Baker developed the labeling theory, states that society develops deviance through a system of social control agencies that identify through a system of social control that identify certain person as a delinquent. People classified as crazy, for example, are thought to be dangerous, dishonest, unstable, violent, odd, and otherwise unsound. So this is one of the problem with our society. We put label to other people. If they are crazy and delinquent, we think that they are dangerous, and judge them that they commit such crime. So that's an social reaction. So the last one is the primary and secondary deviance. So the primary deviance entails norms deviation or crimes that have little impact on the actor and are easily forgotten. However, secondary deviance occurs when a deviant event is brought to the attention of significant others or social control agencies who thus characterize the incidents negatively. And that's the difference between the primary and secondary deviance. So, the fourth topic is about economic theories of crime causation. So, the causes of crime are numerous, and a discipline based on a rational conduct such as economics may be at the disadvantage in understanding a phenomenon that is widely regarded as irrational. Created by supply of offense, function as part of the bigger model to investigate optimal criminal justice policy, shows that the elements that influence the amount of crimes as a rational individual commits. So, under the economic theories of crime causation, we have economic model of criminal behavior, or the basic theory. It's a standard model of a decision making in which individuals choose between illegal and legal action based on the expected benefit from those activities. Participating in legal behavior is seen to be the result of a self-optimizing individual responding to the incentives. Specifying an equation to capture the incentives in the criminal decision is a natural first step in most analyses the crime as a work models. So, the economic model of crime is ito ay isang pamantayang modelo ng paggawa ng desisyon kung saan ang mga individual ay pumipili sa pagitan ng aktibidad na kriminal at legal na aktibidad batay sa inaasahang gamit mula sa mga gawaing iyon. So, according to Gary Baker, ito ay nagsasaad na ang mga potensyal na kriminal ay makatwiran sa ekonomiya at tumutugon ng malaki sa mga pumipigil sa mga insentibo ng sistema ng hustisyang kriminal. So, that's the economic model of criminal behavior basic theory. So, the next is the Karl Marx theory. So, it is viewed crime as a result of law enforcement tactics similar to the labeling process theory, perceived a link between criminality and the injustices seen in the capitalist system. Claims that as a result of its evolution, employees have become dehumanized mass who live lives at the mercy of their capitalist employers. So, Karl Marx theory claims that as a result of evolution, employees have become dehumanized mass who live at the mercy of their capitalist employers. Nagrereklamo siya tungkol sa kawalan ng katarungan ng pagpapadala ng mga maliliit na bata upang magtrabaho sa mga minahan at industriya mula sa madaling araw hanggang dapit na hapon. So, tinuliksa niya ang mga taong binubugbog ng isang sistemang umaasa sa pagsusunod at pagkikipagtulungan kapalit ng kunting suhol. He also concluded that the character of every civilization is determined by its mode of production, the way its people develop and produce material goods or materialism. So, mo na ang gustong ipahiwatig ni Karl Marx theory about sa iyang theory. So, mo na ang Karl Marx theory. So, the last one, also, capitalist society is a subject to the development of a rigid class culture with a capitalist bourgeoisie at the top, followed by working proletariat at the bottom, the French member who produced nothing and live parasitically off the work of others dependent. So the last one is the Friedrich Engels and Wilhelm Bunger theory. So Friedrich Engels theory depicted that crime as a result of societal demoralization, a collapse of people humanity reflecting a fall in society. So capitalist society demoralizes workers, trapping them in a cycle that leads to a crime and violence. Working people turned to a crime because the alternative was famine or quick death at the hands of the law. Argued that the cruelty of the capitalism system converts worker into animal like being with no will of their own. So that's the Friedrich Engels theory. So while the William Bunger's theory believed that crime is a social and not biological origin, but exemption of a few species cases, crime lies within the boundaries of normal human behavior. No act is naturally immoral or criminal. He viewed crime as antisocial acts that reflects current morality. Bunger argued that the capitalist economic structure can have detrimental influence on a society and can create criminal behavior and allow it to flourish. So Bunger refuted each school's claims that noted that the link between crime and the economic condition in a country was the most compelling argument. He also believed that in a causal link between crime and economic and social condition, he asserted that crime is social in origin and normal response to prevailing cultural condition. So that's the Friedrich Engels and William Bunger's theory. The next topic is all about biopsychosocial theories of crime causation. So it discusses how adjustments or modification to the person, bio, psycho, and social components affect his or her behavior. The psycho components investigates a person's emotions, thoughts, and motivation for communicating crime, while the social components evaluates how the person socializes or interacts with others. So under the biopsychosocial theories, we have psychosocial model of crime causation. So it integrates or combines both the bio, psycho, and social aspects of crime causation. This theory, bio components investigate factors of biology that influence health, things like brain alteration, genetics, or the functioning of main body organs like the liver, kidneys, or even the motor system could be among them. Examining the psycho components of theory through emotions and behaviors are example of such things. So, biopsychosocial attempts to understand the behavior of the criminals by considering its biological, such as genes, hormones, and brain structure. And this theory was created by George Angel and John Romano. So the next is the moral insanity and criminal responsibility. According to Isaac Ray, moral insanity was a term used to describe persons who were normal in all aspects except that something was wrong with a part of the brain. Ray questioned whether people could be held legally responsible for their acts if they had such impairment because such people committed their crimes without intent to do so, can be classified as crazy or criminal depending on the perspective from which they are viewed. So, moral insanity and criminal responsibility, this theory was argued if a person lost its sanity morally, are the same responsible to their crimes that they committed, that why sometimes they are labeled as crazy for they are not in the right pace of thinking. So that's the moral insanity and criminal responsibility. We have also premenstrual syndrome. So, refers to an onset of the menstrual cycle that triggers excessive amounts of the female sex hormones which affect antisocial aggressive behavior. It concludes that there is a link between heightened levels of female hostility and menstruation. So, premenstruation syndrome can be effective as affirmative defense to criminal charge if the defendant can show that she is suffering the syndrome. This theory was popularized by Katarina Dorothea K. Dalton. So that's the premenstrual uh, syndrome. So let's proceed to the next. It is battered child syndrome. Medical diagnosis based on evidence indicating that the child has been subjected to a pattern of serious and unexplained abuse. The condition does not prove that a specific individual is to blame. Rather, it suggests that child who can sustain serious, recurring injuries did not sustain them by chance. Used to draw the logical conclusion that only someone is routinely caring for the child would have opportunity to inflict these types of injury. So, it is where a child experiencing with abuse physically with those who take care of the child. What is worse is that brings trauma to the child. This theory was coined by Henry Campi. So that's the meaning of the battered child syndrome. So we have also the battered woman syndrome, a phrase that describes women who are trapped in the have recently left violently relationship marked by the cycle of abuse. This type of learned helplessness, this psychological abuse degrades and humiliates the woman, thereby facilitating the destruction of her self-esteem and implication her moral person. So a woman who is trapped in a relationship where her partner shows violent act and give multiple injuries to her, that loses her confidence and experiencing trauma. So let's proceed to the postpartum stress syndrome and postpartum psychosis. So, type of postpartum depression that occurs between the baby blues and postpartum depression, defined as a condition that lasts longer than 3 weeks following the birth of a child, marked by the sadness that seeps into the woman's pores and pervades her life. So, mother with a psychosis may need to be hospitalized for a short time. So, postpartum depression happened after the mother gives birth to the baby blues and experience mood swings and anxiety. On the other hand, postpartum psychosis is a rare illness. They didn't give birth with baby blues and even have normal birth. It, the person involved or the people who coined this theory is Michael Finkelstein, and that's the old topic of the biopsychosocial theories of crime causation. So, our last topic is all about political or social conflict theories of crime causation. So, uh, it asserts that society is in a permanent state of internal struggle with various groups attempting to force their will on others. Those with money and power are able to influence the law in order to suit their wants and protect their interests. Laws are used by the upper class to keep the lower class under control. Though the lower classes do not commit all crimes, they are the ones who are asserted the most. So, political and social theories talk about money and power. A person who had power and money enables them to influence the law in order to have a protection. So we have a Marxist criminology. Uh, Crime is viewed as the result of the capitalist mode of production. The rich bourgeoisie use the fear of the crime as a tool to maintain their control over society. The poor are controlled through incarceration. The middle class are diverted from caring caring about the crimes of the powerful because they fear the crimes of the powerless. Criminals came from a third class in society, the lumpen proletariat, who would played no decisive role in the expectation revolution. So we are divided with a three society, rich, middle class, and poor, in which those people belongs to the lower class will be exposed with criminal activity since they have the low resources to protect themselves. So that's the Marxist criminology. So we have also the conflict theory. Result of a class result of the class war, the high, medium, and lower classes are all battling in the area. Conflict encourages crime by creating a social environment. Individuals in position of authority define crime. Power refers to a person or a group ability influence and control the conduct of others. So, ang conflict theory is a competition between groups in a society over limited resources they had. So the person involved in this theory were William E. Bonger, Ralph Darwin Dolph, and George Vold. That's the person involved. They created the conflict theory. So let's proceed to the social reality of crime. So, according to Richard Queney, combining his beliefs about power, society, and criminality into theory represents the interest of those in position of power society. Conflict between social groups such as wealthy and poor, conflict between social groups such as wealthy and so balik. So, social reality, it is where criminal can do the crime when he is deprived with opportunity as well as when a society cannot solve the problem. For example, youth is also using drugs and the barangays cannot solve it. Then this youth continue to do it. The person involved was so that's the social reality of crime. And the person involved in this theory was John Lia and Jack Young. So we have also left realism. So So, left realism, it is a straight criminal. So, social reality of crime. According to Richard Queenie, combining his belief about power, society, and criminality into theory represents the interest of those in position of power society. Conflict between society, social groups such as wealthy and poor. So, the poor people find it unequal since the rich people and the power to be benefited by the law and poor society were deprived with everything. So that's the social reality of crime. Then the left realism, it is the straight criminals prey on the poor, crime victims in all classes needs and deserve protection. Crime happens when a person is being deprived economically plus the governing body in the community do not know how to render solution problems. So, left realism, it is where criminal can do the crime when he is deprived with opportunity as well as when the society cannot solve the problems. For example, youth is also using drugs and the barangay cannot solve it. Then the youth continue to do it. So that's the meaning of left realism. So the person involved in this theory was John Lia and Jack Young. So let's proceed to the postmodern theory. It focuses on the critical analysis of communication and language and is value laden and can be promote the same sort of inequities. So those in power are able to use their own languages to define crime and law while excluding dismissing those who are in opposition. So this theory explains that when a person can know legal codes and language that will fit the situation, had the great chance to be benefited. Especially the rich people, they are the one who win this case. So that's the meaning of postmodern theory. So we have also the institutive or constitutive theory. According to Greg Barak and Stuart Henry, crime is defined as an intentional infliction of harm on others. Classified as criminals are made unequal or disregarded at the same time, are rendered unable to maintain or exhibit their humanity. So, so this theory stated that people committing criminal act at the same time being made unequal or disrespected. Uh, they are rendered powerless to maintain to express their humanity. Ang theory na ito ay patungkol ito sa batas na ginawa nila ito para mabigyan ng definition ang mga criminal acts. So, that's the institutive and constitutive theory. So, let's proceed to the conservatism and liberalism theory. So, conservatism, authority is uncontested people require disciplinary education for those who have the necessary capacity and restraint for who do not. The crimes are result of pathologies of mind and body. And liberalism, however, everyone has equal opportunity and everyone accept variation. Everybody's opinion is respected. Ideal society as one in which people who are naturally creative and freedom loving. And that's the meaning and difference between the conservatism and liberalism. So, let's proceed to the radicalism. So, uh, it radicalism, it is faulty society should be replaced, favoring of racial and ethnic minorities as a recurring elements in rightist ideology. Other types of discrimination are pushed by the ruling classes to keep the workforce divided, particularly those motivated by Marxism, thus easily controlled. So, ang radical na teorya ay may posibilidad na tingnan ang batas ng kriminal bilang isang instrumento kung saan pinipilit ng mga makapangyarihan at mayayaman ang mahihirap sa mga pattern na nagpauugali at nagpapanatili sa status quo. Ang isang ganoong pananaw, ang tinatawag na teorya ng peacemaking, ay batay sa premise na ang karahasan ay lumilikha ng karahasan. So, that's the main meaning of the radicalism. So, let's proceed to the last subtopic. It is all about identity fusion theory. So, according to William B. Swan and Michael Burmeister, defined as a visceral sense of belonging to the group that is linked to a permeability increase in boundary, both strengthened and strengthened by the group, resulting in more personal agency, see the group as a family, and believe that being as a part of it necessitates making sacrifices. Strongly focused views, people will make extreme sacrifices for the group. So, when we say views, ito yung identity mo, i-adapt yung identity ng group or a family mo. For example, papasok ka sa isang trabaho, sa isang kumpanya, dapat i-fuse mo ang iyong identity to adapt the group of the company. Kung ano yung environment sa company, dapat i-fuse nimo ang imong identity para mabilong ka dito nga company. So, that is the last topic. So that is the end of my discussion about the different theories that we discussed, and thank you for listening, and God bless.